Hello everybody, my name is Kat Bowser. I am your resident fantasy therapist and welcome to my channel. Those of you who are returning, welcome back. Those of you who are brand new, my name is Kat Bowser and I am a licensed therapist. I am also an author currently working on my debut novel, Coexist Division. And on my channel, I like to talk about all things writing. So sometimes we'll talk about process of writing. Sometimes we'll talk about world building. Sometimes we'll talk about character development. But I thought for this video, we'd talk about something a little different, and that's fan fiction. And the reason I bring this up is because a lot of writers, a lot of very good writers, start out doing fan fiction. I personally still do fan fiction. It's such fun for me. But people that do fan fiction tend to get kind of a bad rap in the writing community. And I thought it kind of pay to kind of dig into what exactly is good about fan fiction, because there is a lot that is good about fan fiction. So first off, what do I consider fan fiction? I consider fan fiction to be any writing or comic book form or things of that nature that are done either in a pre-existing world by another creator or using characters of another creator. So television shows, comic books, movies, things like that, other books. And I think it's important to talk about because I see so many people getting burned and criticized for doing fan fiction. I've been told, when are you going to stop doing fan fiction and write for real? And I think the first point I want to bring up is fan fiction is writing, and it is real writing. One of the things you will hear consistently about how to become a better writer is to just write. And that's what you do when you write fan fiction, you write. So even if they're not your characters, you're still learning about grammar rules, you're still learning how to form sentences, you're still learning about character development, you're still learning about plot development, foreshadowing, point of view. I could go on. Anything that you have to learn about the writing process, you can learn through fan fiction. And I think a lot of times it actually helps to do fan fiction because you're doing it in different genres, and sometimes they're genres that you normally wouldn't do. So that exposes you to some rules and things that you might not see in certain genres. Like I do some Dragon Ball Z fan fiction, and that is a genre that is based in, I know I'm going to pronounce this wrong, I believe it's wuxia, which is a martial arts fairy tale type of genre, which is not what I write generally, but I have learned a lot by writing in that new genre. Second point I would like to bring up regarding fan fiction is that when you write fan fiction, it has a really good knack for pushing you out of your comfort zone. When I first started writing fan fiction, I think it was in 1994, 1995. I was very, very young, and I can guarantee you that my stories were not very good, but they were fun, and so that's what I did it for. But being female, I was primarily used to writing female characters. Any assignments I did for school, they were always from a female point of view. But I did like quite a few shows that were considered to be quote-unquote boy cartoons. I liked Thundercats, I liked He-Man, I liked Ninja Turtles, things of that nature. And I had ideas for these characters because I really loved these characters, but I wasn't male. And so I decided, you know what? I love these characters. I want to do this idea with these characters, so damn it, I'm going to learn how to write a male. And it's still something that I'm always learning more about, but I did get better. Same thing in regards to action. Like I said, I do write some Dragon Ball Z fan fiction, and when I first started writing it, I was horrible at action. Verbatim, my words were, my action scenes suck. And they did. They were really bad. But again, I had these ideas that I wanted to do with these characters, and so I told myself, you know what? No, I'm gonna learn how to write action. And so I spent some time observing movies, cartoons, and I would try to describe the action scenes that I saw. I started to look up people who are very good at writing action. I started asking people questions. How are ways that you can do an action scene? I made myself learn. And I don't know if I would have done that quite so early if I hadn't started writing fan fiction. Anything that pushes you out of a comfort zone and forces you to learn something new is always a plus in my book. All right, third point, and this is one I think people kind of skip over a lot, is a lot of times I hear that fan fiction is limiting because it forces you to write within a preset characterization. I think this is great exercise because, kind of like with the previous point where it pushes you out of your comfort zone, it does the same thing, only this time it's with characterization. I have a character in my work in progress who is a very sarcastic, kind of snarky type of character. And I love writing him now. When I first started fan fiction, I was horrible at writing those kind of characters. But almost every series that I liked had one of those characters. And I couldn't just not write a character in. I couldn't just leave them out. The fans will let you know if you do that, I can guarantee you. So again, kind of like with the action scenes, I learned how to write a character that was sarcastic. I learned how to write a stoic character. I learned how to write characters that were very cryptic in their speech. I learned how to write characters that spoke very formal. I learned how to write characters that spoke very informal. And these were, again, all things that would I have eventually learned? Probably. But I started learning them early. And the longer you learn at something, the better you get at it. So I consider it a blessing that I had to write within a preset format. All right, fourth point, OCs, or original characters for the uninitiated. You will not find a single fan fiction genre that does not have an OC in it somewhere. They are everywhere. And I think OCs, again, kind of get a bad rap, and that's because of the Mary Sue / Gary Stu character. And this is a character who's completely perfect, can do everything right, outshines all the other characters. Those are not necessarily good original characters. However, you can write a very good original character, and I will be the first to tell you that the roots of a lot of my characters in my work in progress started out as fan fiction original characters, because I had to develop their background, I had to develop everything about them straight from scratch. But I learned how to do it in a setting that I kind of knew, I kind of understood, and so I got to explore different avenues with them. I got to kind of toy with the traumatic past that it seems like every OC character has at least some of. I learned where that worked. I learned where it didn't work. So they kind of became my guinea pigs for developing good characters. And I am grateful for it. Looking back at some of my first original characters, they were horrible. They were horrible. Pretty and naive and I've taken pieces from them, but they have changed dramatically from my first OCs. But again, it was a learning process, and I'm never going to turn down a good writing learning process. All right, next point, setting. I kind of like with the OCs, setting in fan fiction universes. You're kind of limited to the setting because usually the cartoon or the movie or the book they've set that up for you. But again, it forces you to write in a setting you may not be familiar with. I primarily like to write in a fantasy type setting, but I've written fan fiction that is very sci-fi-ish. And so I had to write with technology. I had to write with cities. I had to write very urban. And that was difficult for me. That was something that I was not used to having to do. But I learned by not only reading other people's fan fiction and writing my own, but having discussions with people. We would just talk about the settings of the show, not the characters, just the setting in general. And you learn a lot about it. You get a lot of people's different viewpoints, and then you kind of discover your own and see what you can do with it. I learned the importance of scale. through fan fiction, taking into account where is this city in regards to this one, how long does it take to get from here to there, and those are things that I use all the time when I write fantasy now. Alright, next point, the world of AUs, or alternate universe, for those of you who don't know. This is probably the most popular fan fiction, and it's popular for a reason. Basically, an AU is taking a scenario, usually a famous episode or section of a book, and saying, what if it didn't go this way? What if it went another way? What if exercises are standard for writing exercises? I can't tell you how many times I've had teachers and colleagues tell me, well, if you want practice, why don't you do what if you woke up tomorrow morning and XYZ had happened? And those are great, but if you do it in fan fiction, you're not answering one question, you're answering multiple questions. Here, I'll give you an example of my favorite kind of AU, and it's from The Hobbit. And that's the AU of what if Thorin, Vili, and Kili did not die at the end of the book. Spoilers, I guess, for those of you who haven't read the book, but I mean, come on, guys, it's been since like 1937, I think. I don't think you can claim that you've had it spoiled anymore. Anyway, and not only are you exploring what would have happened with Thorin actually being king, you're exploring what would have happened with his two nephews, what would have happened when the War of the Ring came about, what would have happened with his friendship with Bilbo, what would have happened when Bilbo went back to the Shire, but he still had friends in Erebor. These are all questions that you have to answer when you do an AU. And I think it's more practice than a simple, what if this happened tomorrow? Because again, you're not answering one question, you're answering a bunch. And I've seen some of the most emotional stories come out of AUs. There is a episode of Ninja Turtles, Same as It Never Was, where Donatello is sent to an alternate universe where Shredder has won. And that has spurred so many great fan fictions about, well, what if Donatello wasn't the one that went? What if it was Michelangelo? What if it was Leonardo? And the creativity that comes out of it is amazing. Okay, next point, and this one I cannot stress enough how important this is. Fan fiction gave me a thick skin. It taught me how to take criticism, because I can guarantee you the fandom world, while it's great in some instances, it's also got a very toxic side. And if you write fan fiction, you will find it. They will find you. I was told at one point that someone would, quote unquote, leave me alone if you promised to never write again. And that hurt. But I pushed through it and I figured out, okay, this is not personal. And that's something a writer really needs to learn very early on, is people are not going to like your work sometimes. And it's not a personal attack. It's just these people don't like your work for whatever reason. And so learning how to filter out what feedback is helpful and which ones you can push aside is a skill that you need to learn. Because I've gotten criticism that's very helpful. I've been told, hey, this area of your writing, the character, I don't think they would act this way because of XYZ. And I'll go back and I'll reread it. Sometimes I will disagree with them, but oftentimes they have good points, and so I'll take those into consideration when I write in the future. And because I know what criticism helps me and what doesn't, I've learned how to give good criticism. I've also learned the importance of feedback. I mean, writers love to get feedback, even if it's something as simple as, hey, I really enjoyed your story, great work, keep it up. Writers will love that because it means someone is reading their stuff, and that's what they want to hear. Okay, last couple of points. In addition to learning how to give and take criticism, I have been exposed to so much support through the fandom community. And it's great to have someone to throw ideas off of. It's great to have someone to talk about things that are important to you, to talk about why you like certain characters, why you don't like certain characters, why you like certain settings, why you don't like certain other ones. And it's great to always have a support group, especially if you're moving on to doing your own original work. It's nice to have people that you can go to and say, hey, I know you guys were reading my fan fiction. I've really appreciated your support. Here's some original stuff I'm working on. And oftentimes, if they like your work, they will follow you. And you're coming with people already essentially in your ranks, so to speak. And that's always great because that means word of mouth. And speaking of word of mouth, fan fiction, free publicity. Seriously, free publicity. I originally did not want to get into the 2003 Ninja Turtles cartoon because I grew up with the 87 cartoon and it was very, very different. So I was kind of biased against it. I read a fan fiction based in the 2003 world and it was very emotionally charged and I loved it. I went and sought out the cartoon from a fan fiction. And I think that's something that authors and companies need to keep in mind. I have nothing against authors who don't personally like fan fiction, but I think they need to take into account that once they finish a story, once they finish a book, they have put their heart into it, yes, but they can't control how people interpret things. Like, here's a good example. Hobbit fan fiction. They call it Bag and Shield, which is essentially Bilbo and Thorin as a romantic relationship. I personally, it's not my thing, but I can see why it is for some people. And personally, is there any harm in really letting fans kind of do what they're going to do? No. It's fun, it's harmless, and I think it's great because it gets people thinking of different avenues, different viewpoints, and in my opinion, that's never a bad thing. And lastly, honestly, guys, it's fun. It's fun. I love to write on my original work. This work in progress is my baby. I've been working on it for years, little bits and pieces at a time. But fan fiction is my relaxed writing because writing is fun for me. Some people like to play video games. I like to write. So if I'm not working on my novel, I'm usually working on a fan fiction because it's how I relax. And while I think it's important that the fans respect an author if they ask you not to post fan fiction, if you still want to do it on your own time, that's fine. Have fun, do you, so to speak. Enjoy what you enjoy. And just like we learn from all the books that we read, we learn every time we write. So I think it's great if you have a community that you can kind of pour yourself into these shows or these movies or these books that you love so much. So I say go for it. Have fun with it. I will be the first to admit that when I get this novel written and published, if people want to write fan fiction on it, as long as they're not making money off of it, I'm cool with that. That's fine by me. Because writing and literature is all interpretation. The author has their interpretation, but they can't control their readers. So, as far as I'm concerned, have fun. Go have fun with it. It's like going into, as far as I'm concerned with fan fiction, it's like when you first read a book, it's like the author has invited you into a beautiful garden and they have shown you around, they've shown you all the important points, their favorite points, their not so favorite points. But when you do fan fiction or get involved in a fandom, it's like the author has said, now you can explore on your own. Open sandbox, so to speak, to use a video game term. Alright guys, so those were just kind of my thoughts on a topic I've seen pop up on AuthorTube a couple times. And I'm glad you guys chimed in to kind of hear my thoughts on it. Next week I should have some more videos up on world building. That seems to be the favorite topic as of right now, so I am planning on getting some videos up on creating scale in your world, and maybe I'll touch on a little bit of how to make fantasy religions. Those are always kind of fun. If you guys have any comments, questions, or ideas, feel free to share in the comments below, or you can always contact me on social media. Until then, have a great week, guys. Bye.